Hello everyone, I Akhilesh Kumar Tiwari welcome you all to the Swayam online course on Basic Principles of Energy Management and Energy Audit lecture number 3. So, in the previous lecture we have discussed about the primary and secondary energy, commercial and non-commercial energy, and also the renewable and non-renewable energy with their examples. Also, we have discussed about the present scenario, worldwide reserves, consumption of resources like coal, oil and natural gas. Now, coming to today's lecture, we are going to learn about the consumption of energy globally, the present scenario of energy, which will include the sectors like coal, oil, natural gas, electrical energy, nuclear power, hydropower and sector wise consumption of energy in India. So, in this lecture we will also discuss the data related to available reserves of primary commercial energies. So, first of all, let us discuss the primary energy consumption on a global scale, which is a total of 12,730 million tons of oil equivalent at the end of 2014. The dominant energy source is oil, which accounts for 33% of the total share, while coal and natural gas follow closely behind with shares of 30% and 20% respectively. This anticipated surge in the demand for natural gas is expected to occur in the next coming years, which is driven by the proactive measures taken by industrialized nations to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. The table which is shown presents comprehensive breakdown of the primary energy consumption across different elements on a global scale measured in million tons of oil equivalent, which is represented as MTOE. Now, the primary energy consumption for India is shown in table. You can observe that India's absolute primary energy consumption is only about 4.7% of the whole world. Means apart from the whole world, India is consuming only 4.5% of the total primary energy. This primary energy content of all fuels is generally expressed in terms of TOE, which we have already discussed, the tons of oil equivalent, and it can be represented as, means if we take the value of 1 ton of oil equivalent, it is equal to 1 into 10 to the power 7 kilocalorie, which is also equal to 11,630 kilowatt hour, and in terms of joules its value is 41868 megajoule. So, this basically represents the oil equivalent, tons of oil equivalent. Now, if we talk about the final energy, it refers to the type of energy that is accessible to the end user after it has been converted from its original form, like we have already discussed the primary energy and secondary energy. So, the primary energy is what which we can be used in original form. So, that particular form is called as primary energy, and the aggregate energy consumption in the end use sector is represented by the final energy consumption, which is measured in million tons of oil equivalent, that is MTOE. Now, the energy consumed by energy producing industries for both transformational purposes and internal usage is not taken into account. Therefore, the final consumption of energy can be calculated as the amount of energy that has been supplied to the end user or end customer. This basically explains the primary energy or final energy consumption by any of the consumer. Now, we will now see the consumption of energy in India for the data of 2013, and it was around 595 million tons of oil equivalent, while the global energy consumption was 12,730 million tons of oil equivalent. Now, in this energy consumption, the major part or the predominant part is coal in India. Okay, so coal is the predominant source of energy in India, accounting for around 55% of the overall primary energy production. Means overall the coal has the maximum share of primary energy consumption in terms of production, which is around 55%. Now, from 2008 to coming years, there has been a progressive rising trend observed in the proportion of natural gas in primary energy production, while there is a slight decline observed in the proportion of oil in primary energy production. The proportion of commercial energy in the overall primary energy consumption amounts to approximately 74%, while the proportion of non-commercial energy in total primary energy consumption stands at 26%. Basically, the table which is shown in the figure illustrates the primary energy usage in India. Now, we will discuss something about the coal sector. So, basically India has substantial coal reserves estimated to be approximately 60.6 billion ton. These reserves consist of 56.1 billion ton of hard coal, which includes anthracite and bituminous coal, as well as 14.5 billion tons of soft coal, which basically considers or covers subbituminous and lignite coal. Now, this constitutes approximately 6.8% of the global reserves and is projected to sustain for approximately 100 years based on the current reserve to production ratio, that is R by P ratio, which we have already discussed in the previous class about the R by P ratio. So, now the coal deposits in India are predominantly concentrated in the eastern and south central regions of the country. Means basically the maximum reserves or conservation of coal can be observed in the state of Jharkhand and Odisha, which collectively possesses around 51% of the total coal reserves in the country. Also, we have the coal reserves in some part of Chhattisgarh and in Madhya Pradesh also, but the major portion of the coal reserves in Jharkhand, that is in Dhanbad and Odisha. Now, India is recognized as a prominent global producer of coal and lignite. The predominant proportion of coal extraction, over 80%, is conducted through open cast mining, limited to depths ranging from 150 to 300 meters. Now, the remaining 20% of coal extraction occurs through underground mining operation. Basically, in the figure you can observe what is the difference between an open cast mine and in underground mine. Basically, in open cast mining, the coal is extracted from the surface, means the depth of coal is not too much below the earth. So it can be extracted from open cast mine through machines. But in case of underground mining, the depth of coal is very deep, so you cannot extract the coal from open cast mining. So this can be done through the underground mining, and you can also see the figure to discriminate or to differentiate between the two mines. Now, the current production of coal within the country is inadequate to fulfill the growing demands, as India is a growing economy. So, day by day the number of industries and the number of steel plants are increasing. So, to fulfill that particular demand, it is not possible to be the coal available in India. So, to fulfill this growing demand of power, steel and cement sectors, which are expanding their capacity, to address this increasing gap between demand and supply, there has been a notable increase of coal imports. So, basically the coal imports are primarily sourced from Australia, Indonesia and South Africa. Now, the selection of these countries is based on careful evaluation of both quality and cost factors, with a particular emphasis on coal with higher calorific value and lower ash content. Means the quality of coal is basically decided by the carbon content in the coal and also the residue, means after burning of coal how much residue or ash is left by burning the coal. So, that particular these two factors decides the property of the coal. Now, the steel sector and coke makers mostly import coking coal based on considerations of its availability and quality. The power stations which are situated in coastal areas and cement factories are opting to import non-coking coal due to factors such as transit constraints and commercial concerns. Means if you are importing coal from outside India, then you have to pay the extra amount of charge, or we can say expense, in transporting that coal from any of the other countries. Means the coal will be transmitted by the sea route. So, you have to pay the fuel cost, and we know that by coming day by day the fuel cost is increasing. So, to transport the coal from outside India or to import the coal out from outside India, you have to pay a huge charge. So, the companies are now constraining towards the non-coking coal. Now, Indonesia has emerged as the primary exporter of coal to India, with Australia and South Africa ranking second and third respectively. The production and import of coal are shown in the table, which basically presents that with the coming years or with the progress of time, the production and imports are varying. Now, to protect the environment or to promote the renewable energy sources, Government of India has introduced a tax called as Clean Energy Cess. So, basically this Clean Energy Cess is a kind of carbon tax and is levied in India as a duty of excise under section 83(3) of the Finance Act 2010 on coal, and it is imposed on coal, lignite and peat, goods specified in the 10th schedule to the Finance Act 2010. In order to finance and promote clean environment initiatives, funding research in the area of clean environment or for any such related purposes. This was introduced with effect from 1st of July 2010 through the Union Budget 2010-11. On coal produced in India or imported to India. Means this is basically a tax for the coal produced in India or the coal which you are importing outside from India. So this tax is levied on both types of coal. This is in line with the principle of polluter pays, which is the basic guiding criteria for pollution management. Means if you are using coal, somehow you are polluting the environment. So if you are polluting the environment, then you have to pay the tax also. With the Finance Act 2016, the Clean Energy Cess was renamed as Clean Environment Cess. Also, in many of the countries, carbon taxes are levied also on other fossil fuels like petroleum, natural gas, etc. Means in foreign countries, apart from coal, the usage of fossil fuels have introduced taxes on petroleum, natural gas, etc. However, in India, this is applied only on coal and its variants, that is lignite and peat. Now, we will talk about the oil sector. So, basically India possesses approximately 5.7 billion barrels, that is around 800 million tons of oil reserves, constituting a mere 0.3% of the global aggregate. The primary oil fields are basically situated in the Bombay High, the upper part of Assam and on the Krishna Godavari basin, which is also shown in the map. At the conclusion of 2013 or by the end of 2013, oil constituted around 29% of the nation's primary energy use. India's crude oil production amounted to approximately 42 million metric tons, while its consumption reached around 175.2 million metric ton. Means the production is very less as compared to the consumption. So, with the current reserve to production, that is the R by P ratio in India is at approximately 17.5 years. Means the oil which is in India, having the reserves in India, will last approximately by 17.5 years if we are using at this current pace. Now, India ranks as the fourth most significant consumer of oil globally. India's crude oil requirements are met by imports, with a significant majority of over 75% being sourced from Gulf states or the Gulf countries. We all know about the Gulf countries, that is Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. So, most of our crude oil has been transported or imported from these Gulf countries, and a major portion of Indian economy has been spent in this importing of oil. So, it's our responsibility, it's our duty to reduce the consumption of oil. So, the government are now promoting the renewable energy sources, and also the major portion of oil is consumed in transport sector. So, day by day as we are progressing, we are more switching towards the electric vehicles to preserve this spend in the foreign states. Now, if we consider the use of petroleum products across different sectors, it is observed that the transport sector exhibits the highest usage. As I have already told you that this oil has been consumed majorly in transport sector, and it exhibits the highest usage of petroleum products, followed by home and industry sectors. So, basically the consumer for oil is the transport sector in India. Now, the oil and gas sector has been made accessible to private and foreign investments through the implementation of New Exploration Licensing Policy, which is called as NELP. So basically this policy aims of incorporating advanced technologies and global best practices in the fiscal year 2013-14, and the total volume of crude oil imports amounted to 189.238 million metric tons MMT, with a corresponding value of rupees 864,875 crores. So basically a table has been presented which shows the trend in the import expenditure on crude oil during the recent years. So this is all about the oil sector. Now coming to another primary fuel, which is the natural gas. So now we will discuss about natural gas. So in this case, the natural gas has emerged as the predominant fuel choice owing to its ecological friendly characteristics, enhanced efficiency and cost effectiveness. It is alternatively referred to as the primary energy source of the current century. The process of cooling natural gas to a temperature of -161 degree centigrade results in its conversion into a substance known as LNG, that is liquefied natural gas. So basically we are converting this gas to a liquid. We are converting the natural gas from gaseous form to a liquefied form for transportation, which makes the transportation easy. So basically this practice is implemented to facilitate the process of storing and transporting of gas. Due to the significant reduction in volume achieved during the process of liquefaction, natural gas is commonly transported via specialized vessels equipped with cryogenic tanks. Also CNG, which is compressed natural gas, is produced through the compression of natural gas, which mostly consists of methane, that is CH4, to a volume that is less than 1% of its original size at standard atmospheric pressure. Now in 2013, the utilization of natural gas in India constituted just 7.8% of the overall fuel consumption, also which stands in comparison to the global average of approximately 24%. In 2013, India's natural gas consumption amounted to around 51.4 billion of cubic meter, while its production capacity was at 33.7 billion cubic meter. So we can see that the production is less and the consumption is more, also in case of natural gas. So India has engaged in the importation of natural gas through the utilization of liquefied natural gas. Now this LNG is received at terminals where it undergoes a process of regasification before being distributed as natural gas to end users. The LNG projects require significant capital investment. The consumption of natural gas is mostly dominated by the power generation and fertilizer sector, as we have predicted that the natural gas is a fuel of present and the future century. So its usage or consumption is increasing day by day, and the major consumers of this natural gas are fertilizer sector and the power generating companies. Now, given the expanding applications of gas in several sectors such as automotive fuels, and we can see that we are using now CNG as a fuel. It is a replacement of fossil fuel. So, now we are using the CNGs in the metro cities. Okay. So, CNG is used as a fuel for transport sector, distributed power production and industrial and home fuel. The Indian government is actively pursuing strategies to enhance the accessibility of gas inside the country. A nationwide gas system is now being developed in order to cater the bulk and retail gas consumption needs of consumers. The provision of city gas supply is now limited to a selected number of prominent urban areas, but is projected to expand in a large scale in the development of India's gas infrastructure. Additionally, there is an ongoing development of LNG ports in order to access the international gas markets. Also, this fuel or this natural gas is having some drawbacks associated, which is basically the inherent volatility in its pricing, means the prices are not fixed, as well as the uncertainty surrounding of its availability, means its availability is also not certain. So, these are the two things are which are not viable for natural gas. Now, we will talk about the electrical power supply, which is also says that the electrical power system in a country comprises of generating units that produce electricity, high voltage transmission lines that transport electricity over long distance, distribution lines that deliver the electricity to consumers. This complete picture of the electrical energy supply has been presented in the figure. Basically, after the transmission part, we have the substations that connect the pieces or the connects all the distributors with the main supply, and energy control centers to coordinate the operation of the component. Means these all works in synchronization mode to transfer the power from generating end to the consumer end. So, this is basically explained with the figure which is shown here, and the figure shows a simple electric supply system with transmission and distribution network and linkages from electricity sources to end users. If we talk about the electric power stations in India, so as of in June 2023, the total installed capacity of electric power stations in India amounts to 421,901.63 megawatt. Basically, this capacity is derived from several sources, which includes 46,850 megawatt from hydroelectric power plant, 231308 megawatt from thermal power plants, 7,480 megawatt from nuclear power plants, and 129,642.55 megawatts from renewable energy sources, which is also presented and shown in the given table. Now, if we talk about the nuclear power reactors, so right now at present India is operating a total of 21 nuclear power reactors, which are strategically located across 7 distinct sites. The nuclear power station has an installed capacity of 5,780 megawatt, consisting of boiling water reactor and pressurized heavy water reactor. So, basically these two types of reactors we are using in India. First one is the boiling water reactor and second one is the pressurized heavy water reactor. And also there are ongoing projects that have the potential to augment the current capacity by an additional 6100 megawatt. At present, the contribution of nuclear power to the overall installed capacity in India is at a mere 2%, only 2%. And also the Department of Atomic Energy intends to establish a cumulative installed nuclear power capacity of 63,000 megawatt by the nation, inside the nation, by the year 2032. Now, for producing the nuclear power, basically it is constrained because to lack of sufficient uranium supply. Means the production of nuclear power is totally dependent upon the supply of uranium. Means the basic fuel to generate nuclear power is the uranium, and in India the uranium reserve is very much less. So this will result in a suboptimal operating load factor. And also the cost of uranium production in India is significantly higher compared to that of other countries due to the low uranium content in Indian ores, which is basically contain only 0.1% uranium in contrast to the 12 to 13% uranium found in ores mined abroad. Means the percentage of uranium is very much less as compared to the uranium which is mined abroad. And also the uranium that is readily accessible in the surrounding area has the capacity to fulfill the need of approximately 10,000 megawatt of nuclear power production. Now we will talk about the hydropower supply of energy in India. So basically the proportion of hydropower in the nation's overall generated unit has seen a consistent decline throughout the years, and which is reaching approximately 17% by the year 2013. So now we will conclude this lecture. So in this class mainly we have discussed about the consumption of energy globally, the scenario of energy which includes sectors like coal, oil, natural gas, electrical energy, nuclear power, hydropower, and sector wise consumption of energy in India. Also, the discussion will include the data related to available reserves of primary commercial energies in details. So, in the next lecture, we will learn about the sector wise energy consumption in India, energy needs of growing economy. So with this, we will end our today's lecture here. Thank you for your patience, and we will meet in next lecture. Thank you.